So here, I'm going to ask a question.
Sure. I'm ready.
So how did you get to this point where you ended up in an APD in a brand new place?
I know, right? That's exciting. Well, I graduated residency 6 years ago and took a community job. And about a year later, the clerkship director role there came vacant. We're in an interesting place because we're community, but we've had Florida State medical students there for 10 years. And so we had a clerkship director role. So there was kind of this one academic position in our department. And so 5 years ago, I took that. So I've been the clerkship director. I've had a salary from Florida State for 5 years. I've kind of gone to faculty development and done academic stuff for that. And I've had all our medical students. I've written SLOEs, et cetera, mentored some students. And so about a year ago, Florida State decided to start a residency program. And I'm the obvious person to kind of be the APD. We recruited my old program director down to start the program, and he says, Sarah, you've got to be the APD. And I said, wow, okay. I thought it was going to be a community doc, but okay, let's do this. That's what I did.
So they came to you?
Yes, they did. And I said yes.
Okay. I admire your courage.
Wish me luck.
So anyone else have a question or comment?
I have a question. So this is kind of a specific question for Dr. White. For when you, I don't know if everyone saw the whole lecture, she basically started doing kind of AFib type research at a community site. And you mentioned you had a bunch of different private cardiologists. For our residents who are here, we haven't been to Lourdes yet. Like, they do a lot of this early protocol stuff at that community site, but that's because it's the one whole cardiology group agrees they should all do this. Can you just talk more about like the barriers of trying to get a bunch of different private cardiologists to help out with this, or to approve, or to even spend? I guess talk about the barriers, about how you could collaborate with people who aren't academics, so they don't really care about collaborating, or that maybe they don't really have time to care. So. Here.
So thanks, Mark. Great question. What I did was I had to figure out what was their ROI. So I started out by saying we created this new AFib center, and so who's going to go to it, right? And what we did was, in part of the protocol, the last little box was, in order to go through the protocol, they actually had to call a number and get plugged in within 48 hours to the new AFib center. So I didn't start out with this being a research question. I didn't start out with the IRB. I didn't start out, with any of it. It was really a practice change, which is what a lot of community research is, right? And I had to get buy-in, and so I met with each group separately, and then our hospital administration, and we identified an issue. We're admitting all these patients with atrial fibrillation. We've created a new AFib center. Who's going to it? So let's do this. Let's try and cardiovert the ones that are appropriate to be cardioverted. Let's implement this new protocol. I said, let's study it because we should. And then it became a practice change, but it took a lot of, I would say, one-on-one, tell me your concerns, and they were all different. It was like, well, you're going to be cardioverting people that don't know they're really in AFib, right? Very, very valid stuff. And each one of them had their own, call me first. Well, that's not how this will go. So we had to put into our computer order entry system like a set checks and balances for our study protocol, where it would be a hard stop if they met exclusion criteria. It would literally not let you order, because we started with procainamide. It would not let you order it if the answer was, are they on more than one QT prolonging med, right? You'd actually have to answer the questions. So it was a ground up instead of I want to do a research project, get IRB approval, here's what we're doing. It was meet with all the different stakeholders, figure out which stakeholders have the decision-making capacity. Turned out all of them did. And then what were the barriers to getting your stakeholders to buy in, what they'll get back from it, and then go forward from there. Otherwise, it would fail. It would have failed.
Well, I have a question for Jennifer. So did this cost any money? Did someone have to write checks out to anyone?
This cost no money. This was completely unfunded from start to finish, which was why my fellow community docs and my nurses were my study coordinators. So we enrolled 52 patients and then just did matched controls. And each one of those was enrolled by probably a handful of 4 or 5 different physicians. So we had to roll out the protocol first. Yeah, no money, no research coordinators. And it was almost I would say it was a convenience sample, truly, but we enrolled consecutively. But yeah, no money.
Well, that's important because if you work someplace and you don't have any money for research, that's actually all of us. I work at Hennepin County Medical Center, and so during the plenary, how many of you went to the plenary to see the first? So there were 8 papers up there, and 2 of them were for my hospital, Hennepin. And I don't know if you know this, but the second side said conflict of interest, none, funding, none. So almost all of our studies are just like Jennifer's, based on your hard work and probably your extra time and stuff like that, but they didn't require any outside funding. And so the reason why I say that is because you're going to go someplace and someone's going to say, we don't have enough money for funding. We don't have any money for funding. That should not be a barrier. I mean, it's harder. You have to talk people into this who are allies and friends and comrades and colleagues, but it does not require someone to write checks and to have dollars. So when they say, there's no money for this, you're going to have to call up Jennifer and go, so how did you do this again? Or call up the people at home and go, how do you do these studies without funding? It's very possible to do that. So you don't need to have a big pot of money to help. It makes it easier, but you don't have to have a big pot of money. Anyone else?
Totally. We go to solo coverage in the middle of the night. We have a 90,000 visit ER, and in the middle of the night, for the last couple hours of the night shift, it's solo coverage, and whew. Yeah. No, that part of the talk definitely resonated with me the most. So, clinically, if you come out of residency and you work at least some in a community emergency department, you will pick up some skills that you never knew you had that I didn't explicitly get in residency. So
those clinical skills and those academic skills, I mean, when you finish residency, the first day out will be the most terrifying day that you have, your first shift. Yeah, okay, your first 6 months. And so, actually, I didn't know that when I finished. And so I was kind of unhappy with my first job. It wasn't a place like Jennifer's first job. It was at a wealthy hospital in the suburbs of Chicago. And they had just different expectations. I trained at University of Chicago, which is down on the south side, and we had a completely different patient mix, and I was not prepared for that. So, I learned a lot of stuff, and I probably would have stayed there for my career, except I didn't realize that the first 6 months were going to be so different, and I'd have to learn so much, and people would not like what I did, and I would get a lot of criticism. If I would have just known that up front and said, okay, I can accept that, but I ended up changing jobs, which turned out to be good because I got a great job. But if you end up in a bad spot, you can change. So these things that we kind of talked about, if it doesn't work out, it's like, well, you don't have to stick with it. You can change and change your situation or change lots of things. That's the beauty of emergency medicine, guys. Anything else? All right, so. Okay. Okay, so this time to let them go. Okay. So this is thank you very much for coming. Hopefully this is helpful to you guys.